The emergency klaxon echoed through the reinforced corridors of Mount Vernon Base as Marcus Thompson sprinted toward the command center, his combat boots striking the concrete in rapid succession. 3 years had passed since the outbreak consumed civilization, and this converted military facility nestled high in the Colorado Rockies had become humanity's final sanctuary, home to the last 200 survivors on Earth. The morning briefing had started like any other until the perimeter alarms shattered the illusion of safety that had sustained them through countless sleepless nights. Marcus burst through the steel doors to find Dr. Elena Rodriguez hunched over her laptop, her face pale as she analyzed data streams from the outer sensors. "The readings are impossible," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the distant rumble of artillery fire from the walls. "The viral markers are showing evolution patterns we've never seen before. They're coordinating, Marcus, actually working together in ways that should be biologically impossible." Jake Williams, barely 18 but already their most valuable asset with his mastery of surveillance technology, looked up from his bank of monitors with terror etched across his young features. "Sir, the drone feeds are showing movement on all sides. It's not just another horde, this is different. They're moving in formation, like they're planning something." Through the reinforced windows, Rebecca Johnson's voice crackled over the radio from her sniper's nest atop the communications tower. "Command, I've got visual on the eastern approach." "Sweet Mother of God, there are thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands, and they're not stumbling around like the others. These things are moving with purpose." Tommy Anderson's gruff voice joined the transmission from the armory. "Marcus, whatever these things are planning, we don't have the firepower to hold them off indefinitely. Our ammunition stores are running critically low, and the outer fence is already showing stress fractures from their probing attacks." Lisa Parker rushed into the command center, her medical scrubs stained with blood from treating the wounded guards who had barely escaped the morning reconnaissance patrol. "We've got 12 injured, and the reports they're giving me don't make sense. The infected they encountered out there weren't trying to bite or spread the virus, they were trying to capture our people alive." David Mitchell burst through the doors next, his supply run uniform torn and his breathing labored. "The Western supply cache has been compromised. They didn't just overrun it, they systematically destroyed everything we had stored there, like they knew exactly what would hurt us most." Amy Foster, the youngest of their group at only 16, stood quietly in the corner, her keen eyes reflecting a wisdom far beyond her years as she processed the unfolding crisis. The weight of command pressed down on Marcus's shoulders as he surveyed the faces of his closest allies, each person representing skills and knowledge that humanity could not afford to lose. Dr. Rodriguez suddenly gasped, her hand flying to her mouth as new data flooded her screen. "Marcus, the genetic analysis is complete. This isn't random evolution, something or someone has been deliberately enhancing these creatures. The modifications are too precise, too purposeful to be natural selection." The lights flickered ominously as a massive impact shook the entire facility, sending dust cascading from the ceiling and causing several monitors to spark and go dark. Jake's fingers flew across his keyboard as he fought to maintain their surveillance network. "The eastern perimeter wall has been breached. They're not just attacking randomly, they're targeting our specific weak points with surgical precision." Through the chaos, Marcus made the decision that would define humanity's final chapter. "All department heads to the war room, now. If these things have evolved beyond our understanding, then we need to evolve our tactics as well. This isn't just about surviving another attack, this is about whether the human race sees another sunrise." As they gathered around the tactical display showing the inexorable advance of the Undead Horde, each person knew that the next few hours would determine not just their own fate, but the ultimate destiny of every living soul on Earth. Chat controls Sonnet 4. The evacuation alarm pierced through the mountain air as Marcus Thompson coordinated the most desperate retreat in human history, watching through his binoculars as the last convoy of survivors prepared to abandon their final stronghold. The eastern wall had completely collapsed during the night, and now streams of evolved zombies poured through the breach like a dark tide of death, their movements unnaturally coordinated as they systematically dismantled humanity's last fortress. Dr. Elena Rodriguez clutched her laptop containing 3 years of crucial research data while helping load the wounded into the armored medical transport, her hands trembling not from fear but from the devastating realization that they were abandoning the only laboratory capable of analyzing the viral mutations. "The data backups are secure," she called out to Marcus over the roar of diesel engines, "but without proper equipment, I can't continue the genetic analysis that might save us all." Tommy Anderson worked frantically beneath the lead vehicle, his weathered hands attaching the last of his improvised explosive devices to the undercarriage while sweat beaded on his forehead despite the mountain cold. "These charges will clear us a path through any roadblocks those things set up, but we've only got enough for maybe 3 or 4 detonations before we're running on prayers and ammunition." Rebecca Johnson's voice crackled through the radio from her mobile sniper position in the communications truck. "Movement on the northern ridge, they're trying to flank our convoy route. I count at least 50 of the fast ones positioning themselves for an ambush." Jake Williams hunched over his portable command station, desperately maintaining contact with their drone fleet as the facility's main communications array sparked and died behind them. "I'm tracking multiple herds converging on our escape routes, but there's something weird about their positioning. It's like they're trying to herd us towards something specific rather than just eliminate us outright." The first convoy vehicle, carrying their most vulnerable survivors including children and elderly, lurched forward as Amy Foster took the wheel with a determination that belied her 16 years. Behind her, Lisa Parker worked tirelessly to stabilize the wounded while preparing for the medical nightmare that awaited them on the treacherous mountain roads. David Mitchell secured the last of their supply caches in the rear vehicle, his mind already calculating rationing schedules for their dwindling resources while praying they would find sanctuary before starvation became another enemy. The convoy had barely cleared the main gate when the first wave of zombies erupted from the treeline, their pale forms moving with predatory intelligence as they launched a coordinated assault on the vulnerable vehicles. Tommy's first explosive charge detonated in a brilliant flash, clearing a path through the undead mass, but within seconds more creatures filled the gap, their behavior suggesting a level of tactical awareness that chilled everyone to the bone. Rebecca's rifle spoke with deadly precision from her mobile platform, each shot finding its mark as she methodically eliminated threats to the convoy, but even her exceptional marksmanship couldn't account for the sheer numbers pouring from every direction. "They're using the terrain against us," Marcus shouted into his radio as he coordinated defensive positions from the command vehicle. "This isn't random, they're demonstrating knowledge of military tactics and ambush strategies." Jake's drone footage revealed the terrifying scope of their situation as aerial views showed zombie hordes moving in complex patterns across the mountainside, their movements suggesting communication and planning far beyond anything previously observed. Dr. Rodriguez gasped as she reviewed the real-time data streaming from Jake's surveillance network, her scientific mind reeling at the implications of what they were witnessing. "Marcus, the coordination patterns match advanced pack hunting behavior, but the scale is impossible. We're looking at collective intelligence spanning thousands of individual creatures." The convoy pushed deeper into the mountain wilderness, engines straining against steep grades while the passengers held their breath during each hairpin turn that could spell disaster. Behind them, the facility they had called home for 3 years burned in the distance, its destruction marking the end of organized human resistance and the beginning of something far more desperate. As they crested the final ridge overlooking the valley below, Amy's sharp eyes caught sight of something that made her heart skip, a cluster of intact buildings nestled in a hidden canyon, their solar panels gleaming in the afternoon sun and suggesting technology that might offer hope. "Look there," she called out, pointing toward the mysterious facility. "It's completely untouched by the outbreak, almost like it's been waiting for us." But even as hope flickered in their hearts, the radio crackled with Rebecca's urgent warning, "Unknown contacts moving toward the facility from multiple directions. We're not the only ones who've discovered this place, and I don't think all of them are human." Chat controls Sonnet 4. The hidden research facility's massive steel doors hissed open as Marcus Thompson led his exhausted team into what appeared to be humanity's most closely guarded secret, the sterile corridors illuminated by emergency lighting that had somehow maintained power throughout the 3-year apocalypse. Dr. Elena Rodriguez immediately recognized the sophisticated equipment lining the walls: biohazard containment units, genetic sequencing machines, and viral analysis systems far more advanced than anything she had ever encountered, even in her previous work with the Centers for Disease Control. "This isn't just a research facility," she whispered, her voice echoing in the pristine hallways. "This is a bioweapons development laboratory, and judging by the technology, it's been operational since before the outbreak began." Jake Williams deployed his portable scanning equipment throughout the facility's main laboratory, his young face growing pale as he uncovered layer after layer of classified data networks that had been hidden from the outside world. The security protocols here are military-grade, but I'm detecting multiple user accounts that were active right up until yesterday. Someone else has been using this place. Rebecca Johnson maintained overwatch from the facility's observation deck, her sniper rifle trained on the approaches while reporting the disturbing movements she observed through her scope. "Those contacts we spotted earlier are definitely not random survivors, they're moving in coordinated search patterns, and I'm seeing equipment that looks like professional military gear." Tommy Anderson worked methodically through the facility's defensive systems, his experienced hands reactivating automated turrets and reinforcing blast doors while marveling at the sophisticated security measures. "Whoever built this place was expecting trouble, and they spared no expense. We've got enough firepower here to hold off an army, but the ammunition stores are running low, which means this place has seen recent action." Deep in the facility's central laboratory, Dr. Rodriguez made a discovery that sent shockwaves through her understanding of the outbreak's origins as she accessed classified research files dating back 5 years before the first reported infection. "Marcus, you need to see this immediately. These documents detail something called Project Dead Zone, and according to these records, the viral outbreak wasn't an accident but a deliberate field test of a weaponized pathogen." Amy Foster explored the facility's living quarters with Lisa Parker, discovering personal belongings and research notes that painted a disturbing picture of the scientists who had worked here during the early days of the crisis. "They knew what was coming," Amy said quietly, holding up a journal entry dated just days before the outbreak, "and they were preparing for something they called the final phase of human evolution." The facility's main computer terminal suddenly activated as Jake managed to bypass the security protocols, revealing a holographic interface that displayed real-time tracking data for thousands of infected subjects across the globe. David Mitchell studied the supply manifests scattered throughout the storage areas, his logistics expertise revealing a troubling pattern in the facility's recent resource consumption. "Someone has been living here for months, and they've been conducting active experiments. The medical supplies show usage patterns consistent with surgical procedures and viral modification work." As the team gathered in the main laboratory to share their discoveries, the facility's intercom system crackled to life with a voice that chilled them to the bone, calm, professional, and undeniably human. "Welcome to Darwin Station, survivors. I am Dr. Harrison Webb, and I've been expecting your arrival for quite some time." The voice continued with disturbing familiarity. "Your genetic profiles have been most interesting to monitor throughout your journey here, particularly the unique immunity markers several of you display to our enhanced viral strains." Lisa Parker's medical training immediately recognized the implications as she examined the research equipment around them. "This man has been tracking us, studying us like laboratory specimens, and based on these tissue samples, he's been conducting experiments on other survivors who found their way here." Through the laboratory's reinforced windows, Rebecca's sharp eyes detected movement in the facility's lower levels, figures in hazmat suits moving with purpose through areas they hadn't yet explored. "We're not alone down here," she reported tersely, "and whatever Dr. Webb has been doing in the depths of this place, he's got help from people who clearly know their way around." The intercom crackled again as Dr. Webb's voice took on an almost parental tone. "Please don't be alarmed by my associates, they're simply other survivors who have chosen to participate in humanity's next evolutionary step. The viral enhancement process is quite painless, and the cognitive improvements are remarkable." Dr. Rodriguez felt her blood run cold as she realized the true horror of their situation. They had escaped one nightmare only to stumble into the laboratory where that nightmare had been deliberately created. "He's not trying to cure the virus," she whispered to Marcus, "he's trying to perfect it, and we've just delivered ourselves directly into his hands." As emergency lighting suddenly shifted to a menacing red throughout the facility, Jake's monitoring equipment detected the activation of lockdown protocols that sealed every exit, trapping them inside with whatever experiments Dr. Webb had been conducting in the shadows below. "Chat controls Sonnet 4. The laboratory's emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across the faces of the trapped survivors as Dr. Elena Rodriguez made a discovery that shattered their remaining trust. Hidden among Dr. Webb's research files were detailed medical scans of their entire group, including genetic markers that indicated several team members carried dormant viral strains that could activate at any moment. These scans were taken remotely, she announced with growing horror, which means Webb has been monitoring our biological signatures since before we arrived, and according to this data, at least 3 of us are carrying modified versions of the virus that haven't yet manifested symptoms. Marcus Thompson felt the weight of command crushing down on him as he watched suspicion bloom in the eyes of his closest allies, each person suddenly viewing their companions as potential threats while the facility's lockdown systems hummed ominously around them. Jake Williams backed away from his computer terminal, his young face pale with realization as he accessed Webb's surveillance network and discovered months of recorded footage showing their every movement since leaving Mount Vernon base. "He's been watching us the entire time," Jake whispered. "Every decision we made, every route we took, he orchestrated our arrival here like we were pieces on a chessboard." The intercom crackled with Dr. Webb's voice, now tinged with scientific enthusiasm. "The beauty of my enhanced viral strains is their selectivity. They target specific genetic markers while remaining completely dormant until activated by environmental triggers or emotional stress. Several of you are already carriers of the next generation of human evolution." Tommy Anderson's weathered hands trembled as he reached for his sidearm, his military training warring with his loyalty to teammates who might no longer be entirely human. "If some of us are infected, we need to know who, and we need to know now, before this situation gets any worse than it already is." Rebecca Johnson's sniper training had taught her to read body language and micro-expressions, and now she found herself analyzing every gesture and facial expression of her teammates with growing paranoia. "Lisa's been complaining of headaches since we arrived," she observed coldly, "and David has been exhibiting increased aggression during our supply discussions. Those could be early symptoms of viral activation." Lisa Parker felt her heart racing as all eyes turned toward her, her medical knowledge providing terrifying insights into the physiological changes she had been trying to ignore. "The headaches started 3 days ago, but I attributed them to stress and lack of sleep," she admitted, her voice breaking with fear. "But if Rebecca is right about the symptoms, then I might be one of the carriers Webb was tracking." David Mitchell's strategic mind reeled as he realized that his recent irritability and shortened temper might not be natural responses to their desperate situation but early signs of viral influence on his brain chemistry. "We need to establish quarantine protocols immediately," he said through gritted teeth, "because if Webb is right about stress-triggering activation, then our current paranoia could be exactly what he's waiting for." Amy Foster, despite her youth, possessed an intuitive understanding of human nature that now served as her only defense against the growing hysteria around her. "Webb is playing psychological warfare," she said firmly. "He wants us to turn against each other because divided we're easier to control. The real question is whether we're going to let him succeed." Dr. Rodriguez frantically searched through Webb's research data, desperate to find some method of detecting or neutralizing the dormant viral strains before they destroyed their group from within. "The genetic modifications are incredibly sophisticated," she reported while her fingers flew across the keyboard, "but there might be a way to create a detection protocol if I can access his viral synthesis equipment." Through the facility's reinforced windows, Rebecca spotted movement in the lower levels that made her blood run cold. Figures in hazmat suits were herding a group of what appeared to be enhanced zombies toward the upper levels where the survivors were trapped. "Webb's bringing his experiments up here," she announced grimly, "and based on their movement patterns, these aren't the mindless creatures we've been fighting. These things are following complex instructions." The facility's ventilation system suddenly activated with a low hum that sent chills through everyone present, and Jake's monitoring equipment detected the release of an unknown aerosol compound throughout their section of the laboratory. "He's introducing something into the air supply," Jake called out in panic, "and my sensors are detecting biological agents that match the viral enhancement protocols in his research files." As the mysterious compound filled their lungs, each survivor felt a growing sense of unease and heightened awareness, their senses becoming sharper while their emotions intensified to almost unbearable levels. Tommy's hand tightened on his weapon as he struggled to maintain control over impulses that seemed increasingly foreign to his own mind, while Lisa fought against waves of aggression that felt alien to her naturally compassionate nature. The compound is designed to accelerate dormant viral activation, Dr. Rodriguez realized with mounting terror, which means anyone carrying Webb's enhanced strains will begin transformation within the next few hours. Marcus made the hardest decision of his military career as he looked around at his team, his family, knowing that some of them might soon become the very monsters they had been fighting. "We need to separate into individual containment areas until we can determine who's infected," he commanded, his voice heavy with the weight of potential betrayal, because the alternative is watching our friends become our executioners. As the enhanced zombies began pounding against the laboratory's blast doors with intelligence and purpose that defied everything they thought they knew about the undead, the survivors faced their darkest hour, trapped between the monsters outside and the possibility that the real monsters might already be among them. Chat controls Sonnet 4. The emergency exit blast doors finally yielded to Tommy Anderson's explosive expertise as Marcus Thompson led a desperate breakout from Dr. Webb's trap, knowing that their only hope for survival lay in finding other human settlements before the dormant viral strains could fully activate within their compromised team members. Dr. Elena Rodriguez clutched her portable medical scanner as they emerged into the mountain wilderness, the device's readings confirming her worst fears. Lisa Parker and David Mitchell were showing elevated viral markers that indicated transformation could begin within hours rather than days. "We need to find other survivors who might have medical facilities or research capabilities," she urged Marcus while monitoring the biological readings of their potentially infected teammates, "because without proper equipment, I can't develop any kind of treatment protocol." Jake Williams deployed his reconnaissance drones across the valley floor, their cameras revealing scattered smoke columns and radio signals that suggested multiple survivor communities had established themselves in the region following the collapse of major population centers. "I'm detecting at least 4 separate settlements within a 20-mile radius," he reported with cautious optimism, "but their communication patterns suggest they're not working together. Some of them might even be hostile to outsiders." Rebecca Johnson took point as the group moved through the treacherous mountain terrain, her sniper's instincts constantly scanning for threats while noting the disturbing absence of typical zombie activity in the area around the various settlements. "Something's not right about the distribution of these camps," she observed, "they're positioned almost like they're avoiding specific zones, which suggests either territorial disputes or something worse controlling the spaces between them." The first settlement they encountered was a fortified mining operation led by a grizzled former sheriff named Captain Roy Murphy, whose 50-person community had survived by converting abandoned mining tunnels into an underground fortress. "We've been fighting enhanced zombies for months," Murphy explained grimly as he studied the newcomers with suspicion, "creatures that can plan ambushes and use tools. Your story about a research facility creating these things explains a lot, but it also means you've led them straight to our doorstep." Amy Foster's diplomatic skills proved invaluable as she helped negotiate with Murphy's lieutenant, Sarah Martinez, a former social worker who had become the settlement's coordinator for refugee integration. "These people have been betrayed before," Amy whispered to Marcus. "They took in a group last month that turned out to be infected with some kind of controlled virus. Half their people were lost before they could contain the outbreak." The second settlement, established in an abandoned ski resort, was led by Dr. Janet Coleman, a former military physician whose community focused on medical research and treating survivors of various viral exposures. "Your Dr. Rodriguez's research could be exactly what we need," Coleman explained while examining Lisa's deteriorating condition, "but my people won't risk exposure unless you can prove your team members aren't going to transform and kill us all in our sleep." David Mitchell's strategic mind remained sharp despite his increasing viral symptoms, and he worked with the settlement's defense coordinator, Lieutenant Mark Stevens, to develop integrated defensive positions that could protect all the communities from Webb's enhanced zombie forces. "The real threat isn't just the infected," David realized as his analysis of the terrain revealed disturbing patterns. Webb has been using the settlements as testing grounds, introducing different viral strains and observing how communities adapt and survive. The third community, housed in a converted hydroelectric plant, was led by engineer Patricia Hayes, whose technical expertise had created sophisticated early warning systems that detected approaching zombie hordes days before they arrived. "Your young man's drone technology could revolutionize our defensive capabilities," Hayes told Marcus, but integrating our systems means sharing information that could compromise our security if your group falls to whatever web has done to you. Tommy Anderson found kindred spirits among the plant's demolitions team, led by former Marine explosives expert Sergeant Mike Torres, whose people had been developing innovative ways to channel zombie hordes into kill zones using controlled avalanches and structural collapses. The problem is coordination, Torres explained while showing Tommy their makeshift weapons manufacturing operation. Each settlement has developed effective tactics, but we've never been able to work together because nobody trusts anybody else. As the day progressed and Lisa's condition continued to deteriorate, Dr. Coleman's medical team worked frantically with Dr. Rodriguez to develop a treatment protocol while the various settlement leaders engaged in heated debates about the risks of alliance versus the benefits of cooperation. The viral markers are accelerating, Rodriguez reported to the assembled leaders, which means we're looking at transformation within hours, and if Webb's enhanced strains are as sophisticated as his research suggests, the infected individuals might retain enough intelligence to infiltrate and destroy communities from within. Rebecca maintained overwatch from the resort's highest tower, her scope revealing the gradual convergence of multiple zombie hordes on the location, their movements suggesting coordination that could only come from Webb's direct control. The enhanced zombies are moving into position around all 4 settlements, she reported with growing urgency, and based on their positioning, they're preparing for a simultaneous assault that will hit us when we're most divided. The settlement leaders faced an impossible choice as Jake's monitoring equipment detected Webb's aerial surveillance drones circling overhead, recording their every move and preparing to strike when the Alliance was most vulnerable. Captain Murphy looked around at the faces of desperate people who had survived the apocalypse through isolation and mistrust, knowing that their only hope for continued survival lay in abandoning the very strategies that had kept them alive thus far. If we're going to do this, he announced grimly, then we do it all the way, complete resource sharing, integrated command structure, and shared risk for everyone's survival, because half measures will just get us all killed when Webb makes his move. As the sun began to set over the mountain valley, 4 isolated communities prepared to become humanity's last unified defense against an enemy who had been orchestrating their destruction from the shadows, while 2 of their new allies raced against time to avoid becoming the very monsters they were preparing to fight. Chat controls Sonnet 4. The unified survivor camp hummed with unprecedented activity as Marcus Thompson coordinated the most ambitious defensive preparation in post-apocalyptic history, watching 4 separate communities transform their individual survival strategies into a cohesive military operation that represented humanity's final stand against Dr. Webb's orchestrated nightmare. Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked alongside Dr. Janet Coleman in the hastily constructed medical research station, their combined expertise finally yielding a breakthrough as they analyzed Lisa Parker's deteriorating cellular structure and discovered a potential method to halt the viral transformation process. The key is interrupting the genetic rewriting sequence before it reaches the central nervous system, Rodriguez explained while preparing the experimental treatment, but the antiviral compound requires field testing under combat conditions, which means Lisa and David will essentially become living experiments during the upcoming battle. Tommy Anderson collaborated with Sergeant Mike Torres and Patricia Hayes' engineering team to create an integrated defensive network that combined explosive demolitions, structural engineering, and advanced early warning systems into a coordinated killing field designed to channel Webb's enhanced zombies into predetermined elimination zones. We've got enough firepower to level half the mountain, Tommy reported with grim satisfaction, but the real question is whether we can maintain ammunition supplies long enough to deal with whatever Webb throws at us. Jake Williams merged his drone surveillance network with the settlement's existing communication systems, creating a real-time battlefield awareness platform that gave them unprecedented intelligence about enemy movements while establishing secure channels between all defensive positions. I'm tracking Webb's enhanced zombie formations across a 50-mile radius, he announced while monitoring multiple video feeds, and the coordination patterns suggest he's preparing something much larger than a standard assault. This looks like a full-scale invasion designed to eliminate organized human resistance permanently. Rebecca Johnson established sniper nests throughout the valley's high points, training volunteer marksmen from each settlement while coordinating overlapping fields of fire that would maximize their defensive coverage during the coming siege. The enhanced zombies are showing tactical intelligence that requires precision elimination of command specimens, she briefed her new team, which means every shot has to count because missing the smart ones will cost us the entire battle. Amy Foster moved between the various groups with mature wisdom that belied her 16 years, helping resolve conflicts and maintain morale while recording final messages from defenders who understood they might not survive the coming confrontation. People need to believe their sacrifice has meaning, she explained to Marcus, so I'm documenting their stories and their reasons for fighting, because if we don't survive, someone needs to remember what humanity was willing to die for. David Mitchell, despite his advancing viral symptoms, applied his strategic expertise to coordinate supply lines and ammunition distribution while developing contingency plans for various battle scenarios, his analytical mind remaining sharp even as his body fought against Webb's genetic modifications. The logistics are manageable for a 3-day siege, he calculated while reviewing inventory reports, but if Webb can sustain pressure beyond that time frame, we'll be forced into close-quarters combat where his enhanced zombies have significant advantages. Dr. Coleman's medical team worked frantically to prepare field hospitals and trauma treatment stations while training volunteers in emergency medical procedures, knowing that the coming battle would produce casualties on a scale none of them had ever experienced. Lisa Parker, despite her deteriorating condition, insisted on helping with medical preparations while serving as a test subject for Rodriguez's experimental antiviral treatments, her courage inspiring others to volunteer for dangerous assignments despite overwhelming odds. If this treatment works on me, Lisa told the assembled medical team, then you'll have proof that Webb's viral modifications can be reversed, which gives every infected person a reason to keep fighting instead of giving up. Captain Roy Murphy coordinated with Lieutenant Mark Stevens to establish command hierarchies that integrated personnel from all 4 settlements, creating unified leadership structures that could maintain operational effectiveness even if key commanders were lost during combat. We've spent 3 years learning to survive alone, Murphy addressed the assembled defenders, but tomorrow we discover whether humanity can remember how to fight together. Patricia Hayes' engineering teams worked through the night to reinforce defensive positions and establish backup power systems that would keep their communications and early warning networks operational even under sustained assault, while her technical specialists prepared electronic countermeasures designed to disrupt Webb's control over his enhanced zombie forces. As dawn approached, the defenders completed their preparations while watching Jake's drone feeds reveal the horrifying scope of Webb's final assault. Thousands of enhanced zombies moving in coordinated formations across multiple approach routes, supported by aerial surveillance and what appeared to be mobile command vehicles operated by human collaborators. Webb's not just sending zombies, Jake reported with growing alarm, he's bringing human allies who've accepted his vision of enhanced evolution, which means we're facing an enemy that combines zombie resilience with human intelligence and military training. The experimental antiviral treatment showed promising results as Lisa's viral markers began stabilizing, giving Dr. Rodriguez hope that they could save other infected individuals if they survived the coming battle, but the treatment required constant monitoring and medical support that would be impossible to maintain during combat operations. The cure works, Rodriguez announced to the assembled leadership, but implementing it on a larger scale requires laboratory conditions and resources we won't have access to until after we've eliminated Webb and his operation. As the first enhanced zombies appeared on the horizon, moving with purpose and coordination that defied everything the survivors thought they knew about the undead, Marcus looked around at the faces of humanity's last defenders, people from different backgrounds and communities who had chosen to stand together against extinction. Tomorrow we discover whether the human spirit is stronger than human engineering, he told them, and regardless of the outcome, we'll face it as one people rather than scattered survivors. The calm before the storm settled over the valley as defenders checked their weapons one final time, said their prayers, and prepared to write the final chapter of human history with their courage, their sacrifice, and their refusal to surrender to the darkness that threatened to consume everything they had ever loved. Chat controls Sonnet 4. The dawn sky erupted in explosions as Tommy Anderson's carefully positioned demolition charges detonated across the valley floor, sending massive boulders cascading down the mountainsides to crush the first wave of Dr. Webb's enhanced zombie army. But even as hundreds of creatures were eliminated in the opening moments, thousands more poured through the gaps with tactical precision that chilled every defender to the bone. Marcus Thompson coordinated the battle from the central command post while watching Jake Williams' drone feeds reveal the horrifying truth. Webb's forces included not only enhanced zombies but human collaborators in military gear who directed the undead assault with professional expertise, turning the battle into a nightmare scenario where the enemy combined zombie resilience with human intelligence. "All defensive positions, this is command," Marcus shouted into his radio over the thunderous roar of gunfire. "We're facing coordinated assault from multiple vectors. Maintain your assigned sectors and remember that some of these targets are still technically human." Rebecca Johnson's sniper rifle spoke with deadly precision from her elevated position as she systematically eliminated the human commanders directing zombie formations, each shot disrupting enemy coordination and buying precious time for the defensive lines to reorganize. But even her exceptional marksmanship couldn't account for the sheer scale of Webb's assault. "Command, this is Overwatch," Rebecca reported between shots. "I count at least 50 human collaborators mixed in with the zombie forces, and they're using military-grade communication equipment to coordinate attacks on our weak points." Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked frantically in the medical station alongside Dr. Janet Coleman, treating wounded defenders while monitoring Lisa Parker's condition as the experimental antiviral treatment faced its ultimate test under combat stress conditions. "The treatment is holding," Rodriguez announced with cautious optimism. "Lisa's viral markers are stabilizing even under extreme physiological stress, which means we can replicate this success with other infected individuals if we survive the next few hours." Tommy Anderson moved between explosive positions with Sergeant Mike Torres, manually detonating backup charges as enhanced zombies demonstrated disturbing problem-solving abilities by attempting to disarm their automated demolition systems. "These things are learning our tactics in real time," Tommy called out while preparing another explosive charge. "They're adapting faster than any biological organism should be capable of." Patricia Hayes' engineering teams fought desperately to maintain power to their defensive systems as enhanced zombies launched coordinated attacks on their electrical infrastructure, demonstrating knowledge of human technology that suggested Webb had been upgrading their cognitive capabilities far beyond simple motor function enhancement. "They're targeting our power grid with surgical precision," Hayes reported while rerouting electrical systems under fire, which means Webb has given them detailed knowledge of our defensive preparations. David Mitchell, despite his advancing viral symptoms, coordinated ammunition resupply operations from the logistics center while his strategic mind analyzed enemy assault patterns for weaknesses that could be exploited. "The enhanced zombies are following predetermined attack algorithms," he realized while studying the battle data, "which means their coordination is actually a vulnerability if we can predict their next moves." Amy Foster moved through the defensive positions carrying medical supplies and ammunition while providing emotional support to terrified defenders, her courage and determination inspiring others to continue fighting even as the situation grew increasingly desperate. "We're not just fighting for our own lives," she reminded a group of shaken volunteers. "We're fighting for every human being who died believing that their sacrifice would mean something." Jake Williams pushed his drone surveillance network to its limits while coordinating with Captain Roy Murphy to direct defensive fire toward the most critical threats, his technological expertise providing the real-time intelligence that kept their defensive lines from being completely overwhelmed. "Massive secondary wave approaching from the Eastern Canyon," Jake announced while piloting multiple drones simultaneously, "and these ones are moving faster than anything we've seen before, estimated arrival in 12 minutes. As the battle raged through the morning hours, the defenders discovered that Webb's enhanced zombies could communicate with each other through some form of biological signaling system, allowing them to coordinate complex tactical maneuvers that gradually wore down human defensive positions through sheer persistence and adaptive strategy. Dr. Coleman's field medical teams worked under constant fire to save wounded defenders while Lisa Parker, now showing remarkable recovery from her viral infection, volunteered to help treat other infected individuals using Rodriguez's experimental protocol. "The antiviral compound is proving effective even in field conditions," Lisa reported while administering treatment to a wounded defender showing early infection symptoms, "which means we can actually reverse Webb's viral modifications if we can manufacture enough doses." The tide of battle began to turn when Rebecca Johnson spotted Dr. Webb himself observing the assault from a mobile command vehicle positioned on a distant ridge, his presence suggesting that eliminating him might disrupt the enhanced zombies coordination network. "I have eyes on the primary target," Rebecca announced while adjusting her scope for the extreme range shot. but I need covering fire to maintain position long enough for target acquisition. Tommy Anderson and Patricia Hayes coordinated a massive explosive diversion that drew enemy attention away from Rebecca's position while she lined up the most important shot of her career, knowing that Webb's elimination could mean the difference between victory and the complete extinction of human resistance. "Range is pushing the limits of my equipment," Rebecca muttered while calculating wind speed and bullet drop, "but if this works, we might actually have a chance at surviving this nightmare." As enhanced zombies breached the outer defensive perimeter and began engaging defenders in close-quarters combat, the battle transformed into a desperate struggle where human courage and ingenuity faced off against Webb's vision of enhanced evolution, with the very survival of humanity hanging in the balance. The experimental antiviral treatment continued to show promise as more infected defenders received doses and began fighting off their viral symptoms, providing hope that Webb's ultimate weapon, the infection itself, could be turned into humanity's salvation if they could survive long enough to perfect the cure. Chat controls Sonnet 4. Rebecca Johnson's finger tightened on the trigger as she lined up the impossible shot across nearly 2 miles of mountain terrain, her breath steadying as she aimed at Dr. Harrison Webb's position on the distant command ridge while the fate of humanity balanced on the edge of a single bullet. The rifle's report echoed across the valley like thunder, and through her scope she watched Webb crumple to the ground, his death sending immediate ripples of confusion through the enhanced zombie forces as their coordination network collapsed into chaos without his direct control. "Target eliminated," Rebecca announced with grim satisfaction, watching as the previously organized zombie assault began fragmenting into smaller, disorganized groups that the defenders could handle with conventional tactics. Marcus Thompson seized the moment of enemy confusion to launch a coordinated counterattack, directing all remaining forces to push back against the scattered zombie remnants while Tommy Anderson's final explosive charges cleared massive swaths of creatures from the battlefield in brilliant cascades of destruction. Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked with desperate efficiency alongside Dr. Janet Coleman to mass-produce the antiviral compound using equipment salvaged from Webb's abandoned research facility, their breakthrough treatment proving not only effective against active infections but capable of reversing the enhanced mutations that had made the creatures so terrifyingly intelligent. "We can cure them," Rodriguez announced with tears of relief streaming down her face. "Every single infected person can be brought back to full humanity, which means Webb's nightmare is officially over." Jake Williams coordinated the systematic elimination of Webb's human collaborators through his drone network, watching as the remaining enemy forces either surrendered or fled into the wilderness without their leader's charismatic vision to sustain their loyalty to the cause of enhanced evolution. Amy Foster moved through the battlefield providing comfort to wounded defenders while helping coordinate the humane treatment of surrendering enemy personnel, her compassion ensuring that humanity's victory would not be tainted by unnecessary cruelty or revenge against those who had been misled by Webb's promises. "We're not going to become monsters to defeat monsters," she reminded everyone who would listen, "because the moment we lose our humanity is the moment Webb wins, even in death." Lisa Parker, now completely recovered from her viral infection, worked alongside the medical teams to administer antiviral treatments to captured enemy soldiers and infected survivors, proving that Webb's ultimate weapon could be transformed into humanity's salvation through scientific cooperation and determination. David Mitchell, despite his exhaustion from fighting his own viral symptoms, coordinated the establishment of temporary refugee camps for the hundreds of people who had been living under Webb's control, ensuring that former enemies would receive medical treatment and rehabilitation rather than punishment for their unwilling participation in the apocalypse. Tommy Anderson and Sergeant Mike Torres led demolition teams to systematically destroy Webb's remaining research facilities and weapons stockpiles, ensuring that his viral enhancement technology could never again threaten human civilization, while Patricia Hayes worked to restore communication networks that would reconnect isolated survivor communities across the continent. "We're not just rebuilding defenses," Hayes explained while establishing long-range radio networks, "we're rebuilding the foundation for human civilization itself, one communication link at a time." Captain Roy Murphy worked with Lieutenant Mark Stevens to establish provisional government structures that would coordinate reconstruction efforts between the various survivor settlements, creating the framework for a new society built on cooperation rather than the isolation that had characterized the apocalypse years. As the sun set over the battlefield littered with the remnants of humanity's final war against the undead, Dr. Rodriguez announced that her antiviral compound had successfully reversed viral infections in over 90% of treated patients, effectively ending the zombie threat that had plagued humanity for 3 devastating years. The infected aren't enemies anymore, she declared to the assembled survivors. They're patients who need our help, and with proper treatment, every single one of them can be restored to full human consciousness and health. Jake Williams established communication links with survivor communities across North America, discovering that news of Webb's defeat and the antiviral cure was spreading rapidly through underground radio networks, inspiring isolated groups to emerge from hiding and begin the long process of rebuilding civilization. The victory celebration was tempered by the sobering reality of the work ahead. Millions of infected individuals needed treatment, entire cities required reconstruction, and the psychological trauma of the apocalypse would take generations to heal. But for the first time in 3 years, humanity faced the future with hope rather than despair. Marcus Thompson stood before the assembled survivors as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, looking out over the faces of people who had chosen courage over surrender and cooperation over isolation when their species needed it most. "We didn't just survive the apocalypse," he told them, his voice carrying across the quiet valley. "We discovered what it truly means to be human, and that knowledge will guide us as we build a world that's better than the one we lost." Amy Foster began recording the stories of everyone who had participated in humanity's final stand, documenting their courage and sacrifice to ensure that future generations would understand the price of freedom and the power of unity in the face of extinction. As the medical teams continued their work through the night, treating infected individuals and watching them return to full humanity, the survivors began planning the massive reconstruction effort that would transform their victory into lasting peace, knowing that their greatest challenge lay not in defeating enemies but in rebuilding a civilization worthy of the sacrifices made to preserve it. The dawn of a new world broke over the mountain valley where humanity had made its final stand, illuminating the faces of people who had stared into the abyss of extinction and chosen to fight for the light, their victory marking not just the end of the zombie apocalypse but the beginning of a renaissance built on the unshakable foundation of human resilience, compassion, and hope. Chat controls Sonnet 4.